This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, thank goodness for the rain, because otherwise we'd be talking drought. We will anyway. And we'll talk about weasels in Springfield and smelly fish in Chicago. Guess which one's about politics? All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. As one of our crop survey farmers told me, you're never more than 10 days away from a drought. I laughed at the time. Now I'm calling them up to ask for lottery numbers. The lack of moisture has been upmost in just about everyone's mind. Monday morning, I watched stone dry while it rained in a field a half-mile away, and even that was just a sprinkle. With Thursday's rain, it looks like we may have a crop again this year. Let's hope we keep getting visits like that every 5 to 7 days. But has the damage already been done? Or maybe I should ask, how much damage has already been done? And is one rain enough to reverse the negative effects of a drought? I asked Cameron Craig to look in on how droughts happen in this week's Under the Four Rivers Sky.
The atmosphere can create some problems for farmers, whether it is torrential rains that flood fields or devastating droughts that last a whole season. Nevertheless, the drought can create significant problems because droughts can continue without an unforeseen end. Torrential rains can compound problems for a short time compared to the onset of a drought, because water will flow through the soil and drain into waterways. Droughts, on the other hand, can worsen through time because of a series of components that work together as a chain reaction. Several factors go into creating droughts. The first factor is the position of the jet stream. The jet stream is a channel of fast-flowing air that meanders in the upper troposphere. The jet stream essentially determines the placement of the low-pressure cell that brings us the precipitation. When the jet stream is too far to the north or too far to the south, the chances of precipitation dwindles because the surface low is too far away to provide the area with precipitation. Another situation occurs when a ridge of warm, dry air begins to move into a region and remains over the region for an extended period of time. This situation prevents precipitation to fall. It also increases temperatures, which can cause further problems. At the surface and under the ridge of warm air, mostly clear skies increase solar radiation input and increase surface temperatures. The combination of sunny skies and warm temperatures increase the evaporation rate of the moisture in the soil. As this situation continues, very little moisture remains in the soil, which causes surface temperatures to increase even more. Eventually, the moisture in the soil completely evaporates and causes the air to become dry. When precipitation is expected, the chance of that precipitation hitting the surface decreases because the dry air evaporates the rain as it falls. The only way for the dry air to become more moist is for a significant amount of rain to fall through the dry layer for an extended period of time. During a drought event, plants can further create problems for the storage of soil moisture. If the atmosphere at the surface is dry and windy, transpiration increases. Moisture on the leaf is evaporated quickly from the wind. Therefore, more moisture is pulled through the plant and the cycle continues until there is no more moisture in the soil near the root. Differing rain events can help or hinder soil moisture storage. Thunderstorms typically have heavy rainfalls in a short period of time that does not usually help increase soil moisture. Instead, these rain events only soak the thin upper portion of the soil profile and results in runoff. The best rain events are those associated with warm or stationary fronts when the rainfall is light for an extended period of time. This allows the moisture to soak through the soil much deeper than a thunderstorm event. Whether short or long, droughts can cause nervousness among farmers. Any combination of the atmospheric functions that create drought conditions could potentially cause problems for the economic security of farmers, and in the end, for the consumer as well.
Now to get a farmer's perspective on everything that's happening is our good friend, crop watcher for Farm Weekly and farmer at Terrydale Farms, Todd Easton. And Todd, what's on farmers' mind these days, as if I don't know?
Well, as everybody would know at this point, it's dry.
It's a little bit parched out there.
Too dry.
Yeah.
And right with a little bit of heat, it's we've got some crop stress out there, and
Yeah.
we really don't want to see it with such a good start.
Yeah.
But that's
So
what
you-
we've got right now.
So, I mean, you've been planted for a while, both corn and beans. I imagine your corn and everything's all emerged
So-
and looking good. What stage are you at?
Well, the corn is emerged and looking good. I think we're entering into V7, but we've been kind of hanging there in V6, V7 with running pretty close to out of moisture. The corn's gone in defense mode, and we've seen a lot of rolling up in Coles County. It's,
So the corn's
tough.
Yeah. So are you doing beans this year?
yeah.
Okay.
and,
How are the beans looking?
Well, the soybeans had enough water to emerge. Now they're kind of waiting for a drink.
So everybody's just lined up. Now, I got to tell you that we're taping this on Wednesday. And there's rain in the forecast, possibly for Thursday. So all this may be a moot point, but what do you do when you're seeing your crops out there just, wisping away?
A little bit of prayer.
That doesn't hurt.
I guess that, and there's just not a lot you can do. You may hold off some spray applications because weeds aren't actively growing and things like that. But you just kind of hope for rain and watch the forecast. And
Now, there's a long way between now and what I'm going to ask you, but if we do have a drought and the plants wither, is there a chance for replanting yet?
well, no, I don't think so. Because
Okay.
what would have to happen is things dried out and you went to go back in, you'd have to have moisture.
So, I mean,
There's
pretty
no
much this
planting
is
in
it.
dry
We
dirt.
roll the dice. Okay. Well, so are there things you are doing now? Now, I know last week you said you were side dressing and did a little nitrogen.
Yeah, well, with the dry weather and the fast development, side dressing got out of the way, and we even got the roadsides mowed before Memorial Day. So
So you really
We're
are
in
sitting
really good
around
shape.
watching the corn grow.
got the holiday weekend off at least. But now we're out doing a little bit of weeding and getting equipment ready for harvest, and getting the planting equipment put away is mainly what's going on the farm right now, and scouting.
So one of the pluses of the dry weather is that the weeds haven't emerged. Have you noticed any pests or any weeds that
Bugs are a little thicker this year, like we kind of predicted last time we talked. Now the weeds have, like the soybeans, have emerged in the beans. The corn's mostly sprayed, and that's over with. But the weeds in the beans have emerged, and guys are kind of wondering, well, should I do something or not? Some of them are starting to get a little big, the more drought-resistant ones. But I mean, without them actively growing, my sprayer's probably gonna stay parked.
Okay. So how about pests? You mentioned the bugs. Have you noticed any rootworm in your fields?
Not much. I haven't seen any rootworm beetles. I haven't seen much rootworm activity. There was talk of cutworm activity, and around, I don't think, we didn't find any on our farm,
Okay.
fortunately. Did have one little snafu with, we had 100 acres of beans we'd planted in mid-April right behind the corn early. The only bean field in the area, and the bean leaf beetles found it. And it was interesting. My sprayer was up at Hinesboro, and the bean leaf beetles were eating on it, and so we ended up spraying corn, so we had to clean it out, and we just decided to call the custom applicator and take care of it, get it done in time. And first time that's happened in years on our farm.
So, but you hadn't seen those elsewhere.
No, and I think now with the other beans, I don't know, they might have give up, or I haven't seen them. So
Well, if there's no beans to eat, maybe they go elsewhere.
yeah, they have more fields to choose from now.
Right,
That's what hurt us, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So we get rain, and we're going to get rain eventually. What do you have? What do you do then? Any plans? You planning on spraying your beans then?
Well, spray the beans, and then we'll watch things in the corn, see if weeds go actively growing again, and see how the corn's developing. I mean, one of the threats to the corn right now is it's setting up its ear size, and in a stress situation, it could cause some bad things down the road that we won't know for a while. We'll just have to watch and see and decide what we can do about it.
Okay.
So
Well, Todd, thank you very much for coming. I've done my part. I washed and waxed my wife's car. So,
good.
You know,
Yeah.
can't blame me for no rain.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We've heard how crops are looking around here. How about statewide? Here's Monica Becker with that and much more. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. What else is there to start out the news but with weather and crops? According to the USDA, corn and beans are both planted and mostly emerged. Corn is listed as 94% emerged statewide with an average height of 13 inches, up from 7 inches last week. Soybeans are at 94% planted and 78% emerged statewide, almost 4 weeks ahead of last year and the 5-year average. In the East-Southeast District, we are at 99% corn emerged, soybeans at 97% planted, and 92% emerged. And the average corn height is at 18 inches. And the USDA is reporting that a vast majority of our area received less than half an inch of precipitation. The East-Southeast District reports 0.34 inches of rain for the week of May 21st through the 27th. But the warm, dry weather has been good for another crop. The Illinois wheat harvest is reported to be 95% filled as of May 27th, way ahead of any other year in the last decade. The closest year was 2006, and that was 71% filled at this point in the season. Now, are we talking homeless corn plants? Maybe. Because of the moisture issue, farmers are reporting rootless corn from around the state. Dennis Bowman of the Extension Service reports that developing corn roots do not handle dry soil very well and in some cases will stop growing. At the 3 to 5 leaf stage, the corn plant shifts support from the seed roots to the new nodal roots that should emerge from the plant. In dry conditions, the nodal roots might not grow, leaving the plant with an inadequate root structure. If the surface moisture is low, the early seed roots keep the plant alive, but cannot keep up the demands of the plant. The first sign of a problem is corn rolling or wilting on a hot afternoon. Let's hope the rain was in time to minimize the damage. And while we're talking about being homeless, the USDA is looking to streamline and tighten up overhead costs for the agency. Initial plans include consolidating 125 of the 131 Farm Service Agency offices, often pulling smaller sites into larger regional USDA centers. As of May 29th, no offices in Illinois were on the merge list, but it's something to keep an eye on. The USDA reported that since 2011, the agency has seen over 1,200 permanent employees leave the agency through voluntary early separation and normal retirement. Now, most of us enjoy visiting Chicago from time to time. There's a lot to do, see, and buy, try, and eat. But last week, Chicago had some visitors that they just as well wish had stayed away. The Asian carp. Illinois fisheries biologists caught 2 60-pound Asian carp in the Garfield Park Lagoon. The Asian carp are that very invasive species that has been moving up from the south despite an expensive effort to stop the progress of the fish and hopefully eliminate them from the area. The lagoon where the carp were found is not connected to Lake Michigan or any canal or river, so the fish could not have gotten out on their own. An Asian carp can't breed in still water, so biologists are trying to find any and all Asian carp and remove them. It is thought that the Garfield Park trespassers were either in a load of fish when the lagoon was stocked or were in a fisherman's bait bucket. And so finally, we have someone more unwelcomed in Chicago than a Cardinals fan. That's all we have for this week. I'm Monica Becker.
The end of May means many things, one of which in Illinois is the General Assembly rushing to get stuff done they've been putting off all year. I had a chance to talk to Illinois Farm Bureau's Kevin Semlaw about what's being worked on that concerns the agricultural world. With me now is Kevin Semlaw. He's the legislative director for the Illinois Farm Bureau, and he's been spending lots of days and lots of nights in Springfield keeping track of our legislature as they're trying to get out of town. Isn't that right, Kevin?
Yeah, it's been a long couple days, and nice Memorial Day weekend in Springfield once again, and they're plodding away through their work.
So what sort of legislation are you keeping track of?
Well, currently today, one of the big issues that is out there is hydraulic fracturing, or what they shortly call fracking. There's legislation that has been bantered back and forth in the Senate and the House to deal with that issue. And right now, there is a proposal from the Speaker's office that they would like to put a severance tax or a tax on oil extracted from the hydraulic fracturing process. There's some regulation in that on what would have to be done on how you set that up as a company and those types of things.
Well, I know some of the farmers in the southern area, our southern area, are producing oil on the land. I imagine there's natural gas nearby too. Um, so, is the bill addressing any of the aquifer water issues?
Right now, one of the earlier drafts we saw late last night did address some of those issues. There is some language in here that those things have to be reported, but the big thing right now is there was a tax that would be placed on any gas or oil taken out through that process.
Now, one of the bills that you mentioned was the geologic CO2 storage, and we were interested in that around here because of the long lost facility that Mattoon had. What's going on with that?
Right now, on the CO2 storage sequestration process bill, that bill has stalled. It doesn't appear that it's going to move here this fall, or I mean this spring, and it'll be the fall when they bring that back to address those issues. The big thing is those companies want to be able to come in and force all surface owners to give their rights to allow this to be stored on their property once they hit a certain threshold. Right now, they want, if you get 51% of the surface owners to sign on to this, they want to go ahead and say that everybody else is forced into this. We, of course, have great concerns of that because we strongly believe that if you're the surface owner, you own the storage space underneath it, therefore you should get their permission and be paid and compensated for that.
I think most farmers would agree with you on that one. The minimum wage law is an issue that the farmers and the Farm Bureau has been following for a while. What's going on that front?
There was a bill introduced in the Senate, passed out of committee, and is sitting on the third reading in the Senate that would increase the minimum wage law to about $10.25 an hour. It would basically go back to a level several decades ago, and then they would allow it to be increased for cost of living adjustments. The big thing in it also for agriculture that is a great concern is currently there is an exemption from mandatory overtime pay for agriculture workers. Of course, that's because of harvest. We all know that when harvest when harvest rolls around, you've got to work when you can, and when it rains, you sit. So we've got great concerns about that, and we've been meeting with the sponsor of that legislation. I don't think it's going to be called here in the next day and a half. We anticipate that this fall that might be an issue.
So, how is the process going? Your reports I read from you suggested it's an eerie feeling over there in the Capitol. How is it proceeding along?
Well, it's proceeding. There's only about 36 hours left here, of course, as we talk now, before the scheduled adjournment. So that looming deadline of extra votes needed to pass any bill is increasing, and there's a lot of pressure. Right now, there's a lot of pressure on fixing and addressing the pension reform issue. There's a plan that was released yesterday, but that made the Republicans in the House mad, so they withdrew their support on the budget. So now everything's kind of stalled here, and everyone's waiting to see what the next step is between the Speaker of the House and Leader Cross, the minority leader in the House.
Is that what's going to lead the legislature to adjourn if they get that settled?
Right now, that seems to be one of the linchpins to everything right now is this pension issue. If they can figure out a way to address that where everyone, it's going to hurt. There's no doubt about it that the state pension systems are in a financial crisis situation. There's some extreme measures that need to be taken to address those. And if they can come to some type of compromise, everyone anticipates that the actual appropriation process, the budget itself, will fall in place once they get this pension system worked out.
Okay, one last question. These things, it always seems like they sit around for 6 months and then all of a sudden to adjourn, everything gets pushed into that last week. What issues is the Farm Bureau following that will probably come up this fall?
This fall, of course, we'll be watching the continuation of the CO2 storage legislation, see what happens with that. We'll also be keeping an eye out on any supplemental appropriations and changes and fixing the budget. Right now, we'll see what else happens, like with minimum wage and those types of issues. We'll continue to watch those. We have a saying around here: nothing ever dies in Springfield. So it'll just pick back up in November, and we'll just start again with where we were at when we left here. Hopefully here tomorrow night.
So there's zombie bills in Springfield.
Very much so. Nothing ever goes away.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Anytime. Look forward to it.
Now with me today is our old friend Dave Shiley, old as far as a year from now. Dave's with the U of I Ag Extension Office in Coles County in this area. And Dave is going to talk to us about, we have some good news and some news about a pest that won't go away. What pest might this be?
Well, the old emerald ash borer.
Our nemesis.
Yeah, that's right. It's still around, and
Okay.
and recently it was discovered in Macon County.
Oh, okay, so it's in Decatur now.
Decatur, and so it hasn't gone away.
All right.
And so just as a reminder to people this summer, as you're number one, camping, movement of firewood. You know, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
People should
Do
not
not
move firewood when they're camping, and they'll see signs at the campground that won't allow them to bring firewood
Right.
because that insect, the larva, hangs out right underneath the bark.
Right.
And that's where it develops into an adult. So people can move that insect without realizing it.
And
from one
that's
place to
really
another.
how it's been moving around, hasn't it?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Started in Chicago and now down here. And so just as a reminder, you know, people should continue to scout, look for damage. Now, ash trees, and it just affects ash trees.
Just ash trees.
And there are some other things that might make the ash tree look a little bit sick, but if they notice some decline, some branches dying back in the tree, then they can go to the Emerald Ash Borer website.
Okay. So what should they do if they think they have some damage from the emerald ash borer?
So if they think they have damage, they can call the extension office, and we can get them in touch with an arborist to come out and take a look at it, or one of our master gardeners if they have pictures of the damage, or a branch they can bring in.
Okay.
That would be good, and we can go from there. But-
Okay, so that's the bad news. The good news is it's farmer market time, isn't it? And if we have people who are either interested in participating in a farmer's market or starting a farmer's market in their town or going to a farmer's market, there's resources the Ag Extension Office has, isn't there?
Yes, on our Small Farms website, within our University of Illinois Extension website, we have a variety of resources, both
Okay.
for growers and also buyers. If you were going to look for, you want to know where can I go buy produce locally, then,
Right.
then on that resource page on the right side, you'll see all kinds of things, and it'll say farmers markets.
Okay.
And search
So,
for that. And
so what sort of information do you have for a producer who's thinking, you know, they're started to grow some produce and they have more than they can eat, maybe a lot more. What sort of, or they're thinking about it, what sort of resources does the Extension Office have for that?
Well, again, on that same resource page, they're going to find information about handling that produce safely, and then rules and regulations about selling that product. You know,
Right.
When we sell things at a farmer's market today, the fruits and vegetables have certain regulations, and really concerned about food safety issues,
Right.
bacteria getting
Right.
into that. So handling it after harvest is really important.
You
But
don't
then-
want listeria to be floating around.
No, and then if in the past maybe someone has sold breads or jams and jellies, there are new regulations related to that, and they can find those right on
So
that resource
you may be
page,
doing
too.
things right, but you just want to make sure.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you don't want someone to stop you after you get there with all your product from selling and send
Yeah.
you home.
Yeah, exactly,
And that's
exactly.
what would happen.
So it's fair season. So what does the Ag Extension Office doing this time of year?
Well, our 4-H staff are getting geared up for 4-H fairs and reminding kids about getting their projects completed. And
No, prodding kids along to get stuff done? No, don't
Right,
understand
right.
that.
And we're working on locating volunteer judges for those fairs and all those details that are involved with 4-H fair seasons.
Right, so if you're interested in helping, basically just contact your extension office, right?
Right.
Okay,
right.
well, thank you, Dave.
All right, you're welcome.
In this economy, everyone's looking for ways to cut down on expenses. Well, one school district in Pennsylvania has adopted an interesting solution to their landscaping needs: alpacas. The Cumberland School District has brought in 6 alpacas to graze in the 2 acres that includes the football fields and a solar array. Now the FFA program is getting involved and has brought in sheep as well as an emu to help. The savings? $15,000 a year, and that doesn't even count the additional fertilizer. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.